Hey everyone, so last time you saw the Stella, it was mostly done, but it still had a couple of things to add. For example, we added this choke, so it goes through the frame and you don't always have to take the cowl off. And I added my SIP Road 2.0s because they look fantastic and they handle really well. The yellow headlight you saw, I had to add a mirror to make it street legal. In terms of exhaust and engine, we're about the same, with the exception of the addition of a BGM super strong clutch with 22 teeth, so we can stretch out those gears a bit more and keep the front wheel down. It made the clutching process very smooth. And it doesn't slip anymore. With this done, we were ready for the first miles and the first rallies of the season.
That's a cool little piece. Check it out. It sounded really good coming in. A little two-stroke. Repsol CBR 600.
Eventually, riding in dirt for a couple days doesn't really do the bike very well. We came back from band camp with a flat, and I wanted to use this video to show you a little bit the maintenance I would like to do outside of an oil change. That means we would look at the flywheel, so I want to make sure everything's tight there. I'd look at my spark plug, and I would take the cylinder head off to make sure that my carburetor is jetted properly, and then we'll take the exhaust off, check out cables, clean out carburetor, make sure the wiring is all set, and then lastly I would go ahead and check my motor swing arm mount and my shock mount to make sure nothing came loose. In order to take the cowl off, I had to remove the spring from the exhaust, then remove my shroud bolt. I don't have to take the other one off because I lost it, and you can see Bandcamp has left its mark on the engine. It was very dirty, so I went ahead and just gave it a clean with the compressor, and I took my cylinder head off. The goal here is to check the color of the cylinder head and the dome of the piston. It's way too black, so I'm way too rich, which I kind of wanted to for the break-in period. But I also took the opportunity to check for any scratches, and everything looks fine. What that means is that I can go ahead and downjet the carburetor. I prefer this method over checking the spark plug because it shows what's actually going on in the cylinder. So then I just mounted everything back on backwards. And if you noticed, I put a black shroud on compared to the gray one that I had there before. It just looks better. Let's just go with that. So let's talk velocity ignition. I really like this thing. The flywheel is very light at 1.2 kilos, which makes it rev up pretty quickly and gives you good throttle response. But it's bolted on, so I wanted to make sure that nothing came loose. And I was right, actually the bolts were a little bit looser than I expected them to be. So to me it was a good point to check if everything was okay. Next up would be the carburetor, and before we start speaking about the actual rejetting, I would like to talk reed valve, because before we left for band camp, I put new reeds in, which basically meant dismounting the reed valve out of this whole MRP block. To my surprise, it came out in one go. And then it was a matter of taking the old reeds off. As you can see, that just one layer, and replacing them with Boyesen reeds. Boyesen was very helpful in finding the right size for me. But it didn't fit quite, so I had to give it a little touch with the Dremel. And then you just mount what Boyesen provided to you. I put a little Loctite on the bolts to make sure that they stay. I actually really like these reeds because they give you some power at low end, and I usually do that to stock Stellas as well. Back to the present day, where I need to rejet the carb and just give it a clean because it was running in dirt. So what I did is I took the carburetor off. I really like working on PHPH carbs, it's so easy. And of course I untightened it. So I made sure that no gas was running out. So you take the float bolt out, and inside the float bolt you have direct access to the main jet. Just make sure you don't spill any gas on your stickers or your engine. I like catching it with a towel. So here you can see the main jet. It's surprisingly easy to change. So since we got the bike running, I was running on a 135 main jet, and I can go leaner, so I put a 132 in. But before I put everything in, just give it a little clean with air. Make sure there's no crap in it that can block your main jet. You can then go ahead and mount everything backwards, back on the bike. The PHPH are easy to work on, but they have a couple flaws, which is this spot on the float bowl that can rub open because it touches the shroud. It is also very prone to fuel starvation. That's why I ran the fuel line through the air hose hole to keep the line as short as possible. So next up are the cables, which tend to stretch after you mount them for the first time. So what I wanted to do is check on the shifter box, retighten my cables, which I can do with these two bolts and an 8-socket wrench. It's one of those things that just comes loose after you break in an engine. It's the same thing with the shock bolt and the engine bolt, which I retorqued down. And then lastly, I took the exhaust off. I'm going to spare you all this fiddly stuff, and I mounted my old SIP Performers in the back to get rid of this blown up tire. I then had my friend Mark stop by with his bike named Kirby, so then I kind of forgot to film the rest of what was happening. I ended up just doing a quick oil change in the evening. I cleaned up the bike, I mounted the exhaust back on, and with that the break-in period is officially over and I could push into it. Of course, Vespas and Stellas wouldn't be Vespas and Stellas if something wouldn't go wrong. So here you can hear me have a misfire. As Guinness so pointed out. Let's listen to it again, and you can hear it too. Yep, there it was. At that point the bike died and I just rolled into the gas station, popped the cowl off, and was trying to find what was going on. I found out that the CDI mount broke off, so there was no ground. I just reattached the CDI to a proper ground, and we were ready to go. Of course, that's meant to be a temporary solution, so all that was left is fill up the gas tank, put some oil in, and go race legally on the street. I hope you enjoyed this episode and I could give you a little insight of how I would do my tuned engine maintenance. And I hope to see you soon. In the upcoming video we'll talk a lot about Penasco and about stuff on my P200. I'll see you then.